An interesting update in the fact that Anthony Fowler has in fact been pretty much calling out now Ted CHEESEMAN. Of course, Ted CHEESEMAN was victorious over Senior Byfield for the British super welterweight title and remains undefeated with 15-0 now. And there's been a lot of talk about potentially Ted CHEESEMAN versus Anthony Fowler. And for those of you who may not be too familiar with these guys, they are up-and-coming British talent, of course, and we fully expect that both of these guys to, at some point, be minimum knocking on the door of a world title opportunity at some point. Ted CHEESEMAN is currently in the top 15 of the WBA, so he's eligible for a shot at a world title. Arguably, it's a bit early, but I think if the opportunity come along, Ted's the kind of character that would take that kind of opportunity if it was presented to him. So there is a bit of needle between Ted CHEESEMAN and Anthony Fowler, and it's a fight that a lot of people here in the UK who follow boxing would love to see that fight. We really, really would. And Anthony Fowler, we know that he's been talking a lot about Scott Fitzgerald. When I met and spoke with Anthony Fowler a couple of weeks back here in Newcastle, a lot of you guys would have seen that interview here on the channel, that he spoke a lot about Scott Fitzgerald. He did bring up Ted CHEESEMAN potentially as one for the future, but what he wants now is he wants another fight now against anybody, and then when Scott Fitzgerald is able to get back in the ring because he's been out with a hand injury or something like that, and then he wants Scott Fitzgerald, and then from Scott Fitzgerald he then wants to move on to a Ted CHEESEMAN. But potentially this fight could be brought forward, or at least that's the impression that I'm getting going by Anthony Fowler, what he said here. So this is Anthony Fowler's statement. I leave everything to my trainer, Dave Coldwell. If he wants me to fight Ted CHEESEMAN next, not a problem at all. Realistically, it will be early in 2019, but I'm ready to go now, and I don't want to mess about. CHEESEMAN got the job done on Saturday. He cut the ring down and made it his type of fight, bullying Byfield. He did get caught a lot, though, with daft shots. Against someone like me taking those shots, he wouldn't see the last bell. He was marked up and cut at the end of that fight, and that's against a boxer like Byfield. I've seen Ted for years in the ABAs as an amateur and watched most of his professional fights. He's a bully in the ring, but he won't be bullying me. I'm the bigger, stronger man. I don't know who CHEESEMAN thinks he is. He's beat no one. He might be British champion, but he's been managed very carefully. He's had good step-ups and boxed for a vacant belt. There is no big name on his record. He thinks Carson Jones was a killer. Jones is about 60 years of age. He's a hypocrite. He said, I get hit too much and I'm stiff. And then I watched that performance against Byfield. There is bad blood between us, and it will come out when the fight is made. If it's timed, possibly it could be on the Callum Smith card at Anfield. That would be unbelievable. It's a lifelong dream to box at Anfield, so things seem to be coming together nicely for me. So that is Anthony Fowler's statement. So obviously with Callum Smith winning the World Boxing Super Series, what he would like is a fight, a homecoming at Anfield in Liverpool, of course, which is a huge stadium. For those who don't know about Anfield, and that is a Liverpool football stadium. So that kind of fight is going to have to happen in the summer. When there's some kind of warm weather. So happening in January, February time, not going to happen. So when he says early 2019, he's certainly not talking about too early. Obviously, he's probably going to be talking about May kind of time, you would imagine. So that's plenty of time to build up. Now, should this fight be at Anfield? I mean, why not? I think, for me though, I think that Ted CHEESEMAN versus an Anthony Fowler is a headliner in itself. For example, at the Copper Box or the Echo Arena in Liverpool. For me, that could be a headliner in itself. But for it to be on the Callum Smith undercard at Anfield, why not? That would be a huge, huge event. Anfield is about 50,000 strong, and maybe potentially a bit more with all the seats and everything being moved onto the football pitch and that as well. So, you know what? That will be a massive, massive event. But I do feel, though, on that kind of arena, I think that CHEESEMAN versus Fowler will kind of go under the radar to a certain point. But obviously that depends on who it is that Callum Smith is going to be fighting. Callum Smith, he's got his whole pick of opponents right now, being the WBA or the Super WBA Super Middleweight Champion, the World Boxing Super Series winner and Muhammad Ali trophy and the WBC Diamond belt holder as well. So he's got a pretty big target on his back. A lot of people would love that fight. I'm sure George Groves would probably like a rematch, unless of course he's planning on retiring. Maybe the winner of James DeGale versus Chris Eubank Jr., maybe they would like it. If he was just going to go fight, say, an unknown, maybe this event wouldn't do that well. But listen, maybe it would. I don't know. But obviously Anthony Fowler being from Liverpool himself and his cousin Robbie, who used to play for Liverpool Football Club, then yeah, that's certainly a big event, no doubt about it. And why not? If the opportunity was there, I'm sure Ted would take it, and I'm sure that Anthony Fowler would take it. I mean, why not? But as I said, I think that Anthony Fowler, he would prefer to get Scott Fitzgerald first. I do disagree with him where he says that Ted Cheeseman doesn't have anybody on his record. Bearing in mind, he's only 15 fights in. Okay, so you couldn't expect too much. But as far as local go, listen, Carson Jones was a very, very good opponent. A lot of people were picking Carson Jones to beat Ted Cheeseman, and Ted Cheeseman handled him candidly. He really did. And Arsenio Byfield as well. A lot of people were picking him to potentially beat Ted Cheeseman as well, because a lot of people do rate Arsenio Byfield. He's very, very awkward. In fact, I wouldn't mind seeing Anthony Fowler versus Arsenio Byfield or a Carson Jones. Got to see how they get on. Now, as far as Ted saying that Anthony Fowler is open to shots, he is open to shots, and we've seen him in the pro ranks against journeyman, I suppose you could say, where he has been hit and hit hard, and he's been bleeding as well. So for him to say Ted Cheeseman got cut and got hurt, well, Arsenio Byfield is better than anybody that Anthony Fowler's been in the ring with. Let's be perfectly honest about it. And for me, I think that Ted Cheeseman's defense is a whole lot better than Anthony Fowler. But again, I could contradict myself here. I think that Anthony Fowler's defense looks leaky purely because of the opposition that he's been in there with. He hasn't respected their power at all. He really, really hasn't. So he's quite happy to take shots. And likewise with Ted Cheeseman. And I think if these two fought, it would be an all-out war. But I think for the first couple of rounds, it would be quite a cagey affair. Both of these guys would be quite defensive. Then the hands will start to drop and the bombs will start to fly. So it's a very, very good fight. And as far as the pro goes, Ted Cheeseman's got the better experience, that's for sure. As far as the amateurs go, you could probably argue that Anthony Fowler has. So that's what makes it a really interesting fight. For me, I would love to see it. Of course, I am part of the Ted Cheeseman team, of course, being like a sporting icons, me and Scott. So I think that from a personal, selfish point of view, I would like this fight to be some kind of headliner. And I think it's worthy. I really do. As I said, at Echo Arena, if Fowler really wants it to be in Liverpool, I'm sure Ted Cheeseman wouldn't mind travelling. If not, at the Copper Box or something like that. So an arena that's not massive, but is big enough to draw in the crowds. And I think this kind of fight would draw in the crowds, in my opinion. For me, I think that even Ted Cheeseman against Byfield should have been the headliner. But I understand fully why John Ryder versus Rotkin was. But anyway, that's Anthony Fowler's statement, and it's almost a shame that these guys have to fight, because that one of these guys has to lose their O so early on in their career. But as I've always said, if you're going to take an L, you do it early on in your career, don't you? And it's a good opportunity for these guys to get it on, because in maybe 2 fights time, Ted Cheeseman's going to be up there in the rankings and literally getting the attention of the world champions. So if these guys are going to fight, it's probably the best time to do it in the next 6 months or so, before the champions start looking at the likes of Ted Cheeseman saying, well, do you fancy a shot? So at least then we can have Cheeseman versus Fowler for the British title as well, which makes it a bit more interesting, of course, as well. But anyway, that's my thoughts on it all. Obviously, you drop me yours. For me, I would love to see this fight. I think that this fight will be very, very good. I expect it, as I said, it'll be a little bit cagey for the first couple of rounds, and then these guys will start unloading on each other. I do think Ted Cheeseman's defence is better, but as I said, a lot of that could be down to the fact that Fowler and his opposition hasn't been very good, so he hasn't respected the power. And you could probably argue that with Ted Cheeseman as well, where he gets to a point where he thinks, actually, my opponent doesn't hit that hard, and he drops his arms down. He is very pale skinned, so he will mark up quite easily. But will that be a problem in the future? I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. But I think Ted Cheeseman's getting better and better and better. With Fowler, his level of opposition has kind of flatlined now. So I would hope that his next fight, if he's going to be fighting before the end of the year, which potentially could be on the Dylan White undercard, that's kind of what I'm hearing. So maybe, and again, that's going to be dependent on who it is that he's going to be fighting against. Maybe Scott Fitzgerald can be back by then, who knows, but I'm kind of hearing that he won't be until around about January, February time. So we'll really have to wait and see. But it's very, very exciting times, I think, for us here in the UK who are watching a lot of our young talents coming through. And Ted Cheeseman versus Anthony Fowler is certainly a fight that I know a lot of you guys would love to see. So anyway, drop your thoughts below about it, click that thumbs up, and of course subscribe. Catch you all on the next video.